our courageous legionnaires and regulars showed the red cowards what it means to be true men. And they show it also to their wives. This is fully justified because these communist and anarchist women advocate for free love. Now, at least they'll know what a man is, not those militia faggots. Good morning to everyone. I'm Pep and this is the Spanish Civil War. In this channel and for the next 3 years, we'll follow week by week the Spanish Civil War, its battles and the Holocaust that it provoked. We made a special mention to the first Brit that allegedly joined the war on the Republican side a couple of weeks ago. Today, we'll make it again, but in a more somber tone, because today, 1936, Felicia Brown becomes the first Brit reported killed during the Spanish Civil War. She was a British artist and leftist on holiday in Spain when the war broke out, and she joined the militias. This week she was killed in the Aragonese front during an ambush while assisting another international volunteer from Italy. Even if their colleagues had to leave them there, their companions took a notebook she carried with sketches of her comrades. These drawings will be later sold in England to get funds for the Republican cause. She was the first of many more to come. Felicia was not the only woman that took the arms for the Republic. During the first stages of the war, the presence of militia women was common and not with rearguard roles. For example, 137 women took part in the Mallorca landing we've already talked about. So, as we saw last week, and we are going to see right now, the struggle is continuing at the cost of many more lives. This week we'll see how the rebels' advances in the south and the north progressed. But we'll start with the Balearic Island, as the Italian fascist Arconovaldo Buonacroce reached the island to boost the defenses with some Italian blackshirts and airplanes. According to Canossa, with the provision of a Republican victory, the Italians wanted to create a protectorate under the influence on the island, to have another base in the Mediterranean. Georges Bernanos, the French writer and First World War veteran, was living on the island. He, who initially supported the rebels, would write later about the repression on the island under Buonacroce, in a book published in English under the name of Diary of My Times. But this will be in the future, because right now a Catalan whale, 8,000 strong, is still stranded around Porto Rojo. In the north, the Battle of Irun continues. And this week, the rebels, that had been reinforced with 5 L-335 Italian tankettes, some pieces of artillery, airplanes, and the flag of legionnaires, will continue their attack at the city in their aim to cut the Basque from an already closed border. The loyalist resistance is though. Next week, with even more artillery, the rebels will start pounding the defenders that occupy the key position of the fortress of San Marcial. Also in the north, but more to the west, after the fall of Gijón, the attacking rebels concentrated now their efforts towards Oviedo. The 25th Tineo falls, even if there's a fierce resistance, and the two rebel columns, the one that came from the north and the one from the south, gathered in La Espina. The Republicans, bolstered after the fall of Gijón, now established a defensive line in the surroundings of Cabruñana village, between the rivers Narcea and Nalón. The advance of the rebels, pointed through Live Oviedo, is contained by the militias for now. A bit more to the south, Tella, Castellón and Asensio continued their march toward the last important city before Madrid, Talavera de la Reina. They continue to push the Republicans that are trying to establish a defensive line, so the battle of the Sierra Guadalupe that started last week after the fall of Badajoz continues. Even if the Phantom column under Captain Uribarri made its best to stop the rebels, village after village falls. Perelada de la Mata, Calzada de Oropesa, and Oropesa itself, where a counterattack is repelled by the rebels. McNeil Moss, soldier and writer in the Epic of the Alcázar described the effective but different way the regulars and the legion fought. The first were agile and approached the battlefield crawling like a snake. The others were capable of that short, baffling attack only the best infantry can do. Against them, the militias, ill-trained and ill-equipped, that allegedly have just started to train themselves, but are, even more now, easily outmaneuvered. But the advance is getting slower and costly. The Republicans still have the overall air superiority. According to Cardona, due to the loyalist air superiority, at that point the rebels had to make their movements by night. Also, more artillery is pounding the rebels, and the Republicans, as Madrid is getting closer, have their supply lines shortened. On the Andalusian front, the rebel expansion continues. This week, we'll see the fall of Nerva and Aroche. It's important to point out that this front is now under the command of Capo de Llano, and Franco moved toward Cáceres to get closer to the Army of Africa. Near the Guadarrama Reef, where we left the Republican rebel army entrenched a long time ago, the village of Pequerinos falls. It will be recovered later. But the Republicans, wounded now, were bayoneted, and the nuns attending them raped by fellow Catholics. On the Aragonese front are the militias the ones attacking. The battle for Monte Pelato takes place. The Italian anti-fascist volunteers under Mario Angeloni attacked and captured the position at huge cost. Even the life of Angeloni itself. There was no further offensive to take Huesca, so the battle for Monte Pelato consisted in a small advance, without that much strategical value. But the important thing that was happening in that front was the revolution, comrades. We'll cover it more in detail as the war progresses, but the anarchist columns that departed from Barcelona and the Iron Column from Valencia brought with them the revolution and started a collectivization process in every village they passed by. In fact, Aragon is the area with more deaths in relative terms caused by the Red Terror, around 3,900 people killed. Nevertheless, on the rebel side, as the region was split in half from north to the south, and being a region not that much harmed by the White Terror, the number of deaths is 8,523, more than the double. Near Teruel, you can find the walls of Caudet, more than 80 meters deep. They hold, up to this day, the remaining of at least 1,005 people killed between 1936 and 1937. We say almost, because this is the number provided by a peasant that lived nearby, that counted in his notebook 1,005 coupes de grace, just between 1936 and 1937. Mallorca's naval landing, that by the way, the whale is still there where we left it last week. The continuous collectivizations, it seems clear that the Catalan side of the Republic is fighting its own war. In fact, one of the burdens the Republic will carry on during the war is the division between the realities that compose it. As the Republic, said thousands of times, is still trying to rebuild the state as he fights against the rebels. Without unity, there's no strategic shared goal, but not only in military terms. In Catalonia, where the anarchists took control of the situation in an experience that shocked everyone that visited Barcelona at that time, and that could be compared to what happened in the southeast of Ukraine between 1919 and 1921, or to what happened in Paris from March to May 1871, a libertarian revolution was in course. Factories, transport, everything was under the control of the workers, mainly the ones of the CNT. Therefore, there the war was tied to the revolution. We have to point out that the anarchists had difficulties to take the revolution to their own fellow Catalan comrades in the countryside, linked to the trade union Unió de Rabassaires, not the CNT. That's in part why the agrarian revolution was taking part in the neighboring Aragon. This position, of course, was not shared by the Spanish communists, the Catalans from the PSUC, a Catalan Communist Party founded just at the beginning of the war, socialists, nor the Republican middle classes. They wanted to focus on the war. The communists didn't favor a revolution in Spain at that time because the USSR had supported the entrance of the communist parties to the popular fronts in order to prevent the rising fascist parties take over Europe's bourgeois democracies. It also had an alliance with France, so its initial position was to protect and maintain that bourgeois republic south of the Pyrenees. The tension between anarchists and the other defenders of the republic will grow among time, bleeding the republic from inside. On the south, near Jaén, another chapter is opening this week. 200 civil guards are garrisoned in the Santuario de la Cabeza. The group was bigger, but some of them already changed side. This week, not trusting the remaining guards, the governor orders them to give up their weapons. They got rid of their machine guns and some rifles and pistols. The civil guards remained there in the sanctuary, and the 28th they made the last visit to Andújar to get supplies. They would remain there, waiting. This week, also something happened that will ruin someone's radio star career. We talked about the creepy radio broadcast of Capo de Llano before, and we started today with one of his despicable speeches. The 29th, in his night broadcast, Capo de Llano would say, "Captured women will be given to the Moroccans, so they could have fun." Even if it's not the most horrendous thing we'll hear from him, after this broadcast, the chief of staff of the general decided the press should not publish Capo's speech without the convenient modifications. The press was publishing every day the previous night radio broadcast. From now on, they'll have to pass through the censorship as they turn to be not so appropriate. During the First World War, we saw some civilian bombardments, but this week, the 27th and 28th, German bombers dropped their mortal charge over Madrid. Still away from their advance, these bombing raids were something new, with an intensity never seen before. The evolution of what we saw during the Great War. The prelude of what we'll see during the Second World War. More deaths and more to come. This week saw also the death of Amparo Barallón's brother and her imprisonment waiting also for the final hour. She was an educated woman affiliated to the CNT, worried about workers and women's rights. That was her crime. Not so different than the one of Juana Capdeville, an educated woman that was married to the Galician civil governor and was raped and shot last week. These kind of women were not suitable for the new state. In fact, some recent archaeological researches found evidences of gender violence in some mass graves, even post-mortem mutilations towards women. Capo's words found their echo. Before ending the week, we'll take a look at the international stage. As the 24th, the Italian consul in Barcelona reported to Mussolini that Italian ships had evacuated 4,388 people since the coup. In the other side of the spectrum, the political one, at least in theory, the USSR accepts the non-intervention agreement, and the 28th Stalin publishes the decree forbidding any military export to Spain. Meanwhile, German and Italian supplies continue to pour into the rebel armies, and the Republic is getting cut out of the world. Maybe not completely, as this week 20,000 rifles and 20 million rounds of ammunition, almost the totality of the Mexican reserve, reached Spain. When all the other democracies with economic interests in Spain or fascist sympathies closed their arms to the Republic, Mexico, Cárdenas Mexico, helped the legitimate government of Spain. A big hug to our Mexican viewers. If you missed our last week episode, here's the link. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe us if you enjoyed it. Share it. We have to bring light to the history of Spain. If you can take it to school, also do it. If you are able to support us in our Patreon channel or offer us a coffee, this could also be great. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye and salute.